On my way to Little Bighorn. I'm going to measure how long this train is. Full of coal. Look at all that coal. Now that train is heading north. As he's moving one way, I'm moving the other, and we're just at about a mile. So figure if we're going two engines, but those are full. That's a lot of weight. Now this is a graveyard for, according to the sign over there, for not just the people who were killed at the Battle of Little Bighorn, but it's a military graveyard, so there are people from Korea, Spanish-American War, and their families are allowed to be buried here according to that sign as well. But primarily it's people who died in battles with the Indians during the late 1800s. Of hostile Indians. And that's something that people are learning today, is if you do not go along with what the government decrees, then you are obviously considered hostile. There's a guy from 1977, U.S. Air Force, World War II. Huh. It's kind of crazy, huh? Oh, I want to be buried at Little Bighorn. Well, he obviously specified that. World War I, Austria. U.S. Navy, World War I. 68 years old. Civilian. Must have been Adam's child. See how their gravestone is different. Gilbert Scott, Oklahoma. World War I and II. 69 years old.
Our stories, the Indian stories, seem to be put aside and minimized at times. But oral histories are who we are. Oral history is our heritage. That is the fabric of our Indian nations. There are processes for ensuring that oral histories are accurately. And it's not just passing down from one generation to another. There's a special place, a special time, and with special people that these types of histories are transmitted. And so we know as Indian people the story of the Little Bighorn. Recently there's been some stories that have been publicized about exactly what happened here. But I'm not in a position to be able to do that because of my traditional values that I hold as a Northern Cheyenne person. So that leaves us with this mystery of the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Why we cannot come to a reasonable conclusion, and there are many. The conflicting narratives of the participants, according to Western history. But were they really conflicting reports? You had language barriers. You had a language barrier that implicated things, the interpreter's interpretation. The fear of reprisal was another one.
260 or so guys died on the U.S. side. Civilian fell there. Boston Custer. Huh. He have his family with him? Another civilian, Arthur Reed. Well, they're on high ground, so...
Was it? Who did? Who? In his class? I'm asking you.
Well, supposedly Custer died within 6 feet of that monument, and they buried everybody except for the officers in a mass grave right there. Now the markers, they tried to put markers, see them, where the guys fell. They slaughtered the horses and used them as basically breastworks. A horse cemetery. 39 cavalry horses that had been shot. Well, too bad, horsey. That's the road, that's the Warrior Road. It goes on for 50 miles into the reservation. We're on an Indian reservation right now. But it's a national monument. I don't know if it came out in the video, but the Indians have a U.S. flag, but they have like a horse, an Indian on a horse, in the middle of the flag. Yeah, it would have been a bad day to be here 137 years ago. Imagine just seeing thousands of Indians. Those flags. It's the Crow tribe. Now this is a monument for the Indians, I believe. They didn't stand a chance. Killed in the Battle of Little Bighorn. Sergeant got their little bloody knife, little brave. Now that Indian guy, what he was saying is there's a conflict, you know, the winner tells the stories. And there was a conflict as to what the real story was. And since all these guys are dead, they obviously aren't telling the stories. Did you see up on the top where they said only about 40 Indians died in the battle? 40
yeah, it wasn't that many.
Yeah, they must have got caught with their pants down here.
Yeah, they did.
Because,
well, if you sit through any of those lectures, they'll tell you also that the military, the cavalry, were really poor shots. And the Indians were very proficient at their... So they hunted.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything. If you're going to be a professional at something, you better be good at it. Otherwise,
For darn sure.
professional drinker doesn't count
No.
when you need to shoot straight. I can't imagine how rough it was way back then.
Yeah,
If
they
it-
were
if
giving
it's-
lectures on it, and they said it was terrible. Those soldiers weren't, they weren't equipped worth a darn. Their clothing was terrible.
Yeah.
Their arms were terrible. The Indians were armed better than the
Yeah.
cavalry was.
Yeah, well, they were trading with the right people, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you know, it's kind of, I was reading something up there and it struck a chord where they said the government's ultimatum to them was, if you don't withdraw, you will be deemed hostile.
Yeah.
And doesn't that sound like the rhetoric today?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm like, don't mess with the U.S. government.
No,
because once you're
not gonna
deemed
win that war.
you know, watch out, there might be a cruise missile over us right now,
That is
you know,
correct.
if
Yeah.
we're deemed terrorists.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll never win that.
No. No, you might bloody somebody's nose, but you're not going to win. Have a great day, folks.
Thank you. You too.
Well, it's what I've never really wanted to be, is a cog in a wheel. I mean, we all are to a certain extent, because, you know, just think about it. How many of us know our great-grandparents? Very few of us. Can you even name their names? We're lucky if we know our grandparents. So these guys died out here in some big battle. And the real story of the battle is we remember it, but don't remember them. 7th Cavalry. If you take away those buildings, and I mean, just imagine being out here. I mean, just middle of nowhere. Yeah, they did not fight the battle they wanted to fight, and they were obviously being chased because they were probably running. I'm guessing they were probably running to get to the higher ground. And as they did, they probably would fight a delaying action. Because you can see how many dead. They'd probably stop, fight a delaying action, allow the rest of the group to continue on. They were running for their lives. So if it was a couple thousand, so you're outnumbered 10 to 1. And you're with a group who can't shoot. They were telling me that the meeting, some of the sessions, these cavalry guys were notorious for not being able to shoot straight. This is where the guys running were caught and slaughtered. Over that hill, way up there, you can see that. And then they tried to escape.
Have you been there?
And they were caught and killed.
Oh, you should. That's in Oklahoma, right? It's in Oklahoma. I was there. I was in Texas and I came up. I went like 100 miles out of my way to go to the. I got some. I don't have.
Well, you notice that a lot of these are in pairs. And I believe what they're probably doing is fighting back to back. That way you basically cut down your blind side. So those two guys who were talking, I met them down at the bottom there, and they're both very passionate, had very different opinions. Both said, well, I read this and I read that. Well, I've read some stuff on it, but you know, maybe again back to back. You know, the fact that all the white guys are dead, you've got one story. You can try to piece this together. Those guys were telling me that everybody was up on top of the hill. They were surrounded. And then all these bodies down here, they're saying that they all tried to make a break for it. And they tried to go into that gully. Which, I don't know why in God's name you'd want to go into a gully. especially, you know, dividing your forces like that. Ridiculous. So, either Custer was dead and you had these guys just left and they just decided to run instead of fight. But they were telling me these guys died before Custer, so I don't think we'll ever know. Because a lot of these stories, the Indians didn't write them down. That guy over there, he said the Indians tell their stories verbally through stories. So who knows what information was changed over time as they retold them. Now, if you're on horseback, I guess that's one thing, but if you were on the ground walking or running, I can tell you that this is tiring ground. It doesn't look difficult, but if you're running around here, fighting, that's a factor. And that's why you want the high ground. I mean, if you're trying to sprint up these hills, then I don't think all the Indians were on feet. I mean, horse. That's a fatigue issue. Also, you're trying to shoot while you're running up a hill, whereas those guys up there, they can just shoot at you as you're coming up. I guess you could crawl up the hill. Black, white man. What I was saying is, if there's guys on foot, right, you gotta come to the top here, you're gonna be a tired puppy, even with the adrenaline. Especially on June. I don't know what time of day the battle was. Probably I think it was a 2-day affair, so. That's that Warrior Road into the reservation. Now those people were telling me that Custer's MO usually was he rides into the village, captures the women, and ends the battle. Because I guess they trade the women for who knows. I don't know much about Indian history, but I'm sure they had some, you know, honor and integrity in that way. Custer's command deploys in the current National Cemetery. We saw soldiers start running downhill towards us. Nearly all of them were afoot. I think they were so scared they didn't know what they were doing. They were making their arms go as though they were running very fast, but they were only walking. Some of them shot their guns in the air. It just doesn't make sense. My first instinct is they were either poorly led and poorly trained. The people I was walking with were telling me they were poorly equipped. So that's what happens. Poorly led, poorly trained, poorly equipped. Well, you get slaughtered 260 to 40. It said that all these guys were there, and the Indians were on this side of the hill, supposedly. And Crazy Horse went between the two groups. All these guys fired at him and missed. So you could argue that either they're very bad shots, or it just wasn't that guy's time to go. And way over near those cars, you see there's more markers all the way up there. So it's like, this has got to be at least a mile. So I'll walk it. Walking it, you definitely get an appreciation for just the terrain. It's unfortunate that they don't let you walk down I'm leaving Little Bighorn, going down to Wyoming, down to Sheridan. And I'm taking 212. Well, I took 212. I'm on 314 south now. And you can see how different the terrain is here. Just 15 miles away from Little Bighorn. This actually looks like stuff you can farm and live on. A lot easier. Plenty of trees.